Hi, my name is Arvy and welcome to the developer's walkthrough of Diabolus Ex, my custom map for Doom 2. Inspired by cyberpunk genre as a whole and by Deus Ex franchise in particular, this map received an incredibly warm welcome from the community. So thank you very much everyone who played the map and enjoyed it. This truly warms my creator's heart. Some of you folks wanted to know more about the development of this project, so I decided to record this short creator's commentary. So let's dive right in. We start in a lobby, inspired somewhat by the famous scene from The Matrix. This was not the first area to be created for the map, but I think it's pivotal for two specific reasons. First, it establishes the mood and the scene. The players find themselves in what is clearly a lobby. They get that they came from the outside, and the message pops up that says that they have to get to the roof. Second, this area introduces the blue lasers as the new environmental hazard. The narrow design forces most players to cross the lasers and learn that they open the marked monster closets. We teach this connection to the player so that we can use the same hazard afterwards, maybe even with slight changes. It was important for me to introduce areas off the critical path and alternative ways to progress, because I believe that the exploration is as important to the classical FPS design as the combat. It also fits as an homage to Deus Ex. Also, these stairs over here were added to make the climbing easier. This was actually the first area made for the map. This T-shaped corridor was born in the form of a small, low-poly scene I did last year. Sometime afterwards, I thought, I wonder if these textures fit the Doom dimensions, and they did. And so this map was started. Eliza Kassan from Picus Network. These helmets are here to lead the player to the button. I really like how the skybox turned out. It's modified from several various aerial textures, but the basis is, I believe, the Manchester skyline. No reason why I chose Manchester specifically, it just looked good. As you can see, the button is much brighter than its surroundings. Many testers missed pushing the buttons entirely because they blended in too well, so I had to make them brighter. This area over here is the first proper arena. It was important for me to create a very contrasting image with bright yellow moving pattern creating a backdrop for the scene, making the monster silhouettes pop. More blue lasers, more ways to skip them. Coming to one of my favorite parts, Horseshoe Design. The window here overlooks the yard and the opposite side of the building. It's assumed that this is the player's destination, and it would be easy to identify their position once they'll actually get there. The term Horseshoe Design popped up in a great series of videos called Devs Play, featuring John Romero playing through episode 1 of Doom.
This is where we kind of came up with the classic horseshoe Like this is how we want U1M1s to go. Classic horseshoe. You go here, maybe you see the other side from there, but it's like it's a U, so you're not in a straight line and boring, and you get to see some cool stuff. And so E1, Map 1 and Doom 2 is like that. Heretic is just like that. Quake is just like that. You know, so game after game was just like horseshoe.
I highly recommend checking them out for some great design tips. Here's the first intersection, where the player is presented with several different ways to progress. I loved how during testing the players would skip different chunks of the map, having somewhat different experiences and being surprised to find out that there was more. I personally prefer level design that supports player agency. Originally there was a long vent leading from this floor to the top. It wasn't visually interesting and really awkward to navigate, so I had to put a room here. I try to be very conscious about contrast, making the environment as varied as possible. This office here is drastically different from what the player has seen before. It's classy, slick, has Renaissance paintings. My goal wasn't just to make a room, but to make an office with a bit of a narrative. Twisting the repeating elements is intentional too. For example, the player has seen bathrooms before, but this one is darker and moodier. It creates the fresh new look without making many new assets. Fun fact, many players assumed that this was a women's bathroom because of the banner with the girl's face. I think looping areas make the map feel more realistic and easier to map in your head. We could have gone through here first, for example. Again, foreshadowing, the player can analyze the situation and pick their fights. This transition was directly inspired by a Doom level pack called Ancient Aliens. Again, contrasts. Cyberspace was something that I had to include in this map, since it was thematically replacing hacking from Deus Ex, and also provided a completely fresh environment to play in. Here's the data transfer tower in the distance, which is seen from many different points in this area. Such thing is called a landmark and is crucial for navigation in the environment with many repeating features. This imp is placed here to mark the point of interest and maybe make the player try to see what's there. I'd like to mention the awesome music made by Dmitry Pitakin, aka El Metallico. I love that he managed to capture the feeling of the late 90s electronic sound, similar to works of Alexander Brendan, one of the composers on Unreal and the original Deus Ex. Yellow blocks are here to grab your attention, make you jump on them. Here, I wanted to experiment a little and show the real world sipping into the digital one, creating bits of geometry to clue in where you'll be teleported to. Horseshoe Design. You'll see where you've been before, so you can map the layout in your head and not be lost. Portraits by Rembrandt are in line with the themes of Renaissance present in Human Revolution. This texture is actually a Captain Crunch cereal box. Again, looping areas for easier navigation. Once again, familiar design elements looking differently. The player is used to seeing vents at this point, but should be intrigued by the blocked one over here. During the early stages of the design, I don't immediately start with the concrete layout, but I try to describe the spaces as generally as possible. For example, here's the cubicle area, here's the yard, here's the kitchen, and the roof. This one was once called the Atrium, and the idea was to have it all overgrown, full of grass and weed and stuff, but it felt more fitting as a server room. The yard here is the second proper arena. It requires a lot of circle strafing and is generally very open compared to the previous parts of the map. A bit of dark humor here. It seems that the workers live on cereals and human flesh, which I don't think is a healthy diet. This pool of blood was actually confusing for testers because the door here wouldn't open before. I didn't want to get rid of it because it looked cool, but I also didn't want to make a different path or another area altogether. So I put a monster closet here that's justifying the blood. These stumps indicate that the pillars will block your way at some point. And over there is the secret. The texture is darker and shifted, as you can see, but we won't go there now. I usually don't like blocking the player's way backwards, but in this instance it was to create the better flow for the combat and make the player move forward. There's a switch that lets you lower the pillars down afterwards. This is the third arena, and it's a bit of a switch of the direction. I wanted to make the space circular to break from the grid intentionally. Let's go back and see what was there in the secret. Here's the soul sphere, which was foreshadowed way back in the level. This is also an example of nested secrets. The switch over here will reveal the teleport to yet another cyberspace section. At first, I tried to design this maze-like area as an actual maze, but it wasn't really suitable for combat because of all the dead ends. So I tried to make it as interconnected as possible, so that the player would have a chance to run, but leave it confusing enough so there's still a navigational challenge. The server room from before. It's important to remember that the testing is never 100% correct if your pool of players isn't varied enough. For example, for almost all of the testers, this Archvile fight was rather difficult, making them lose almost all their armor and health gained from the Megasphere. That's why I decided to add the Soul Sphere bonus. This proved to be unnecessary, since after the release people didn't struggle that much with this fight. I giggled like a kid while making this texture. Again, this was intentional, since the player would have seen the Renaissance paintings by this point and would be even more surprised to find the one with Photoshopped Spider Mastermind. This also acts as foreshadowing for the final boss. The roof, final arena with several waves of monsters. You can obviously try to kill the spider mastermind conventionally, but it was important for me to add the alternative way. Which not many players discovered. So, thank you very much guys for watching. I do hope that this commentary proved to be at least somewhat useful. Please leave your comments and thoughts on level design and design in general, games, Doom, whatever. And yeah, see ya.